Welcome to War Games, hosted by the sales genius Joe Ingram. If you're looking to win the sales battle, then you have joined the right team. In the War Games group, we devise strategies for sales, marketing, branding, mindset, and attitude. We enlist the assistance from the most successful producers across all industries. We then share their knowledge and techniques with you. Our single goal is to get you ready for your next sales opportunity. When it comes to crossing the minefield of sales, step in the footprints of those that have crossed before you. Now, prepare yourself for boot camp and beyond. It's time for the War Games to begin.
We play a game.
Hello, War Gamers, and those of you listening to us on the Sales Genius podcast. So today we're excited to introduce a distinguished figure in the realm of leadership and executive coaching, Margie Oleson, a true luminary and visionary in her field. Margie isn't just any executive coach. She's a leadership maestro with a doctorate in organization development. Her unique blend of knowledge and innovation has redefined leadership, fostering collaboration and productivity in teams across various sectors. So she's one of those people that can help you understand your business, understand your people, and get you to the next level you're trying to get to. So she excels in molding unified, high-performing teams, setting new benchmarks in leadership excellence. Her methods transform leadership groups into cohesive units, boosting overall performance. And who in this world does not need that? That's something that's going to go forward. So join us for an enlightening session with Margie. Gain valuable insights as she shares her approach on architecting triumph, one team at a time. So elevate your leadership journey with Margie's guidance. I'm excited. Let me bring VIP JR up on the screen. JR, welcome. And then we're going to bring Margie up. Margie, welcome. I'm going to move us around a little bit so that I'm more important. No, wait. So that you get more of the screen as we go through, right? And Bob Donnell is out in the audience saying, looking forward to this. Bob loves this. So this is absolutely one of Bob's favorite times during the week. And he's a human behaviorist, so he loves that. So Margie, welcome to the Sales Genius podcast and the War Games group.
Thank you, Joe.
Hopefully the little ditty I did in the beginning explains who you are.
Very well, thank you.
Everyone should be writing notes and listening to Margie going forward. So wherever you're at, turn your attention to Margie. And I'll apologize now, Margie, because I'll interrupt.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so, hello, everyone. So glad to be here today. You'll see on the screen, olsen-consulting.com. That's my website where you'll find all kinds of resources about my passion, which is high-performing leadership teams and learning leadership development, which is something that we actually don't do. So we're going to talk today about, number one, how we really don't develop leaders in organizations. And that is a huge miss. And it might be because people think we can't. And I'm here to tell you, you absolutely can, and we do. But most organizations do not develop leaders in a way that is effective. Number two, I had a long career of very up and down, hit and miss organizational experiences across all kinds of industries, large organizations, small organizations. And you'll hear how I found so many of the similar issues and wondered, what can we do about that? And so I'll talk a little bit about my story, and then we'll talk about what you can actually do. So the end goal is that you have a high-performing organization, regardless of the size, regardless of the type of company, or if you're a division, you can have a high-performing organization when you start at the top. So we're going to talk about starting at the top, and then that leadership team of that division or that company When you're having issues in your organization, it starts there. And people think that maybe you can do something about it on your individual team in your little corner of the world, and you can. But when there are issues across the organization, it is because that group is not aligned. The leader doesn't feel comfortable leading. So let us start with my background. Youngest child in a family of everybody older than me was a leader. And if you think about our first leaders, they're the people that were around when we were growing up. Well, they didn't know how to lead. And so we're taking our cues from them. And then we join sports teams and music and theater, and we get first jobs. And I have to say, several of my first jobs were not positive experiences. Leaders who really were not equipped to do what they needed to do. And then I went out into the world even more so, went to school, earned a 4-year degree, and then started my career in corporate America. And I'd like to define leadership for a moment, because I think this is really important. I would say that in your organization, regardless of the type or size, if you have any number of people whatsoever, leaders are your most important asset. They are your most important resource. They represent the network of people in your organization who are within their part of the organization, and you are directly accountable for their success, which means you understand what your role is in the organization. You understand your team's role in that organization. For the individual on the team, let's say it's me, you have made it clear what my role is and how that relates to the goals that we're going after. And then you make sure that I have what I need to do my work, and we're connected continuously. So I always know how you think about what I'm doing. What I just described is all free. It doesn't require a big investment, and almost everybody who is leading someone, at least 1 or 2 direct reports, is not doing what I just described. So your main role, even if you're a SME, you're a savant in your field, you have a lot of great experience, you are a subject matter expert in the things that are important. The truth is, if you're a leader, your number one role is to represent the people that report to you and help them be successful. So I wasn't feeling successful out in corporate America, and I wondered what was happening. So 3 decades of different sizes of organizations, every type of industry, different people's expertises, maybe the kind of organization where you needed certain certifications or graduate school or a certain experience. All those people were dealing with the same issues, and I was fascinated by that. So after 3 decades in the workplace, I went back to college and earned a doctorate in organization development. And much to my surprise, after 4 years of coursework, I learned that we know what we need to know about leadership. We
Right.
know what we need to know about hot teams, effective teams, and we have at our disposal these items have been around for 3 decades. And when you go to a bookstore or you order something or you listen to a podcast and people give you information about what it takes to be a high performing leader, to have a high performing team, everything they're telling you is based on the same principles that I studied in that 4 years of coursework. So my dissertation topic became, what the heck? What is
Right.
happening in organizations that we have all this information? It's accessible to virtually every leader. It's been published, it's been republished, it gets discussed over and over again, and it hasn't changed. Regardless of the situation in the world, those basic principles have not changed. So I set out to do research that said, okay, so then what is happening with leaders? And I found out some things. And then I spent the last 10 years in organizations working with clients and practicing and testing which pieces really work. And my passion became, hey, this is doable. This is accessible. You don't get up in the morning as a leader and hope you have a mediocre day. You don't get up to go to work as a leader and wish that you didn't feel comfortable holding people accountable, or wish that your team really didn't get along. And also, I can tell you, to every leader within the sound of my voice, you are not alone. You may not talk about it out loud. You may have to feel like you got to kind of keep your head down, stay under the radar. You may not be sharing it on the golf course or out to dinner or with your peer group or your mastermind group, but most of you share privately that you really have no idea how to prepare to be the leader that you always dreamed of. And so I then developed what I call Top Team Accelerator, which is a methodology that puts the building blocks in place that are logical and sequential to take anyone, whether you're a blank canvas, a new organization, you've been around for 100 years, you've been the same leader for decades, no matter where you are, you can turn it around when you put the building blocks in place and you do a logical sequence for first things first. And we can talk now about what that sequence is, if I can keep going, or is there something you want?
No, let me jump in real quick.
Yes.
So you are on fire. I can tell this is
Oh,
passion.
yes.
No. So my question was, I had the question of how do you define leadership? You got that one for me. So, and I'm believing as I'm listening to what you're saying, I know where the answer is going to go, but are leaders nature or nurture?
There are better leaders. There are more natural leaders. And so what has happened is everybody just sort of threw up their hands and gave up. They said, oh, this person is a natural born leader and I'm not. So I'm doing the best I can. I will say that we've seen the data that says whether you're charismatic or not, whether you're a savant or a highly knowledgeable person in your field, or not necessarily, whether you are more extroverted or more introverted, the data shows that that is not relevant. You can be as successful depending upon the situation. I will tell you that it's less about the kind of experience you have or the kind of natural talent you have, and it's more about utilizing the tools and resources that are required to build your leadership. And I would say that any leader who is in a role where they're leading people, they learned leadership from their previous leaders. And unfortunately, their leaders didn't learn it either. So you might be lucky and have a natural talent, and then you teach people how to do what you do, and maybe they follow it even without the natural talent. But if we want to make this available and accessible to everyone, you can put the building blocks in place and deal with the issues that are getting in the way that I discovered in my research and have now built my company on that. And you can also be an effective leader, whether it is nature or nurture for you.
Fantastic. Because I've met people that are the natural born leaders, right? And I just never know, because when I come in to play with them, I don't know if it's because they were brought up that way. Like you said, you were the youngest of the leaders. And so, and then you look and go, if I have a house full of leaders, who's following? Right.
Correct. And I would say that you can even be a natural born leader, but that doesn't mean you're an effective leader. Because if you're not comfortable holding people accountable, that's not effective. If it's difficult to have difficult conversations, that's not effective. If your team is not aligned and you've got boats rowing in different directions and you're saying, well, that's just the nature of the world we live in now, that's not as effective as you can be when you really understand the art and science of what leadership requires, and then you can grow that for yourself. Anyone can grow to be a better leader if they do the building blocks in sequence and give it time and space. So we can, is there a question? Yep.
Yeah.
I just had a quick comment. I was going to ask you, is it the carrot or the stick? And you answered that about 15 seconds after my thought by no, yes, and yes. It's a balance, and it all depends on how much of a sledgehammer you're using as a nail trimmer on somebody, you know.
And I would say that I'd like to talk about the brain for a minute. So neuroscience is one of the aspects that I fold into Top Team Accelerator, because if you don't understand how the brain operates, that's why you're not being successful. So if someone is having the stick, let's say that you're singling somebody out in a meeting, or you are dressing them down for something that they didn't do. If their brain goes into judgment mode or shame mode, they actually can't move forward the way you're hoping they could. And it's not them, it's their brain. And when I looked at all of the information about who is successful as a leader and leading leadership teams, the number one trait is self-awareness. And people think, well, that's natural then. If I don't have it, I don't have it. That's actually not true. But self-awareness grows in our adult development when we do certain things like go to therapy, like journal, like meditation, or other learnings. But the most important piece is appreciating that when you aren't being a successful leader, when you make a mistake, when you lead the meetings that you lead and they're ineffective, that's your brain, because 99.9% of what you do every single day is habit. Our brains are keeping us alive. So they are committing resources to continuous survival, maybe some opportunities. So they really love it when we just do things the way we did them yesterday. So you might think about habits about going to the gym. You might think about habits related to certain ways that you eat or certain communication style with somebody that's important to you. But you might not realize everything you're doing as a leader today, yesterday, the day before, those are habits. And one of the things getting in the way for organizations to grow leaders is, even if they share the information with them, they do an offsite, maybe they have a program where they're spending some hours, but the leader then gets back to work and they're fighting fires and they're doing crisis management, and their brain is like, oh yeah, I know this. And they go right back to how they were before. So you can have the carrot and you can have the stick, and you can manage your team in a way that forces them to just get stuff done. But you're not going to build the high performing organization that you are hoping for. When you put the building blocks in place for a leader to develop in a way that truly engages their brain and helps them learn and change habits, these are the changes that stick. This is how next year your organization is different than this year. And let's take an example. I think pretty much many people have learned how to have a productive meeting. So Forbes in the US calls poor meetings an $85 billion problem every year. So that's true. And you've already heard probably, what should you do for meetings? So let me give you a rundown of the few things that you can do, and then let's talk about why it's not happening. Number one, for an effective meeting, you want to separate out your tactics with your strategy. So you want to have conversations around the tactical, different times with different people than having the strategic. So if you're fighting fires and setting up your operations and wanting to talk about how things are going day to day, that's a tactical meeting. You can have that weekly. You can make sure the right people are there, and you can get everyone aligned on how it's going day to day. But if you want to talk about moving to a new location, or you want to talk about workforce, 5 generations in the workforce, that's a strategic conversation, and you want to separate that out. And you always want to have the right people at the right time for the right conversation. And you want to publish the agenda in advance so people can prepare. And you don't want to start your meeting with, what else should we add to the agenda? Because if you do that, people are going to not be there who are needed, and you're going to have people there who are not needed. And then end 5 minutes early and check with everybody about, here's the decisions we made. Are we aligned on that? Here are the questions that are outstanding, and here are the things that people volunteered for that we've agreed on that these would be the follow-up. If you did those simple things, that $85 billion problem every year would go down. Most people have had a class or read an article or had an offsite to talk about better meetings. And they've heard similar things to what I just said. And they might even try some things. They might do some things. They might write some things. They might tell everybody this is a goal for this year. And then eventually it ends up reverting back to how you did meetings before. And then inevitably someone says, see, doesn't matter. Meetings are terrible. Meetings that don't work. We're doing the best we can. And the problem with that is, first of all, meetings are taking everybody's calendars. So you want them to be the best thing you do, because they're where you run your business. Also, you have so many meetings on the calendar that you don't even need to be at. So you got these recurring meetings. People are coming and they're just sort of kicking back. They're just kind of waiting, and they're glad they're adding value by attending a meeting. Well, that isn't adding value. But then why didn't the meeting grow? Why didn't the meeting become more productive? Because the leader didn't put the pieces in place for making the changes. And how do we learn? You don't get it right the first time. So is anybody observing, coaching? Are you talking openly about how it's going? And then what do you need to do to put systems in place for it to stick? And the brain is not going to jump on board yet. So until you really work with it the way we learn and the way we change habits, you will revert back. And you might not even realize it wasn't you. It's not me. It's my brain. And that example for how that works with meetings, you can just apply that all across your company. So if you're wanting to do a better onboarding program and you've tried some things and they didn't stick, You're just dealing with the brain. I know that companies hire for change management and they worry about resistance management. We've got a big transformation. We're rolling out a new system. We have a new tool. Oh, there are just people that they don't want to change. They're just going to sit back and wait. The truth is, it isn't even them. It's their brain. So if you want to engage their brain so that you can do change management, you need to follow the 7 times 7 ways, that old marketing adage, which give it to them 7 times in 7 different ways. And all that really means is work with the brain the way it learns. Work with the brain the way it pays attention. You as a leader can become a much better leader when you recognize how it works for you to learn and change habits. And then you can grow a high-performing team by recognizing that they also have brains that operate this way. And how can we gauge them in a way that works?
Bam! That was a fire hose that just came through. So in the utilization, as we go back to neuroscience and the way your brain is working, right? I love that because we're big fans of how does your brain work on this show. But why aren't the tools used by individuals that go and seek it, right? And this is an age-old thing. Why do I not start the diet when I said I was going to diet? Why do I, not move to the new apartment even though I said I was going to? But if I go and I say, even if my company imposes it upon me to go and I'm the leader of my department, why is it as human beings, we aren't taking that information and executing?
Because the brain isn't.
Okay.
And so when we were sheltering in place, before that, I had heard that if you lay out workout clothes the night before, or if you even put them on the morning of, you have a much better chance of working out, doing whatever, So I didn't do that. I had that goal. I told people about it. I may have even tried it once or twice, and I didn't turn it into a habit. And then when we were sheltering in place, I was wearing workout clothes, and I found myself outside going for walks. I found myself doing workouts. I had to show me and develop the habit to make this change. James Clear, Atomic Habits, we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our habits, which is why you can't read a book and just implement it tomorrow. Even someone that has been a student for decades, they know how to read a book and apply it, but they can't even do that until they engage their brain. And this is where I feel that my passion really comes, because people are feeling bad. They're kind of feeling bad about, I didn't make this change, or I should have. It's accessible and I didn't. See, I really have to hide that I'm not a great leader, but I don't want anybody to know, or I'm going to lose this coveted role. But the truth is, if we are willing to talk about it for 4th graders, how do 4th graders learn? And we work with their brain the way their brain works. We're willing to talk about it for certain situations. But when people get into organizations, we say, I sent you an email. You should follow the email. I gave you this link to a book. You should read that book, and I expect to see changes. The truth is, we now, with all the imaging technology we have seen, we know what happens in certain situations. And if you don't follow the logic of how we learn, you're just kind of hitting somebody over the head for what their brain is doing. And they don't even realize. Many people don't know about the neuroscience. Many people just think it is the market. It is the way we work today. It's this digital technology that is changing everything. They don't even realize that they are not well-versed on what to do with this team of individuals, of these smart people that are educated and experienced, and they don't get along. The leader does not know what to do with them, but they don't realize that they need to learn it in a logical way. And so, for example, Top Team Accelerator has 4 pillars, and we do them in the sequence of how we need to develop these resources, tools, and abilities in order to be high performing. And so one of the first things we do is develop as a cohesive team. So imagine the leader and the leadership team. And by the way, youngest child, I didn't ever appreciate top down. I wanted empowerment. I wanted to hear every voice. Well, I'm telling you, that is not how organizations succeed. It has to start at the top. Teams have to know what the leader's goals are, and every person on that leadership team needs to be well-versed in that and roll their boat, the boat of their team, in that direction. Most companies don't realize there are people just rowing off in different directions, and you don't even know that's why you're not meeting a budget. That's why this latest launch isn't as successful. You're not even paying attention to whether or not boats are coming or going. But in the teamwork module, The outcome is that you and your leadership team begin to trust each other, begin to collaborate, lower the gossiping, lower the complaining, become well-versed in each other's teams and what you bring to the table. But we don't go after trust. We don't go after collaboration. We go to the deep foundation and we say, in order to develop trust and collaboration, because this is what we know now and have known for years, you need to have clarity about the leader's goals. And the leader needs to over communicate them. And they can't be 27 goals. So you have prioritized and you have the several goals that all boats need to be leading in. And then the leadership team needs to be really clear who else is on the team and what do they bring to the table and what do they need from the people at the table and what is their team's part in it. And then we spend time having real conversations, and we have fixed our meetings. So we're having high performing meetings. You start to do that for a while, a very short while, and pretty soon trust develops, collaboration develops. If you're talking about it openly, gossiping goes down, complaining goes down. When you develop that cohesiveness, you're now ready to go to the next pillar, which is shared clarity and alignment. And so we don't do the next pillar, which is accountability, being able to hold people accountable, having the operations for today, if we haven't first developed clarity and alignment. And then the fourth pillar is performance, and that's pulling it all together and having the metrics that people can rattle off the top of their head. But again, we don't do that first. If you're just trying to aim much farther down the road, it's part of the reason why it isn't working. And you can be forgiven for wanting to throw your hands up and quit. If you started too late in the process, you're going way far down the road when you haven't built trust first, it's not going to succeed. And you're just going to think nothing helps. But you do it in a logical order, and you can develop it the way you wouldn't follow a recipe and start with the 20th instruction. You would start at the beginning and go in order. And that's what we do with Top Team Accelerator.
That's amazing. And the Olsen Consulting is the best place for anybody to find you.
Yeah, so Olsen Consulting has all kinds of resources that you could immediately implement. And then I'm on LinkedIn every day, Margie Oleson, Oleson, and I put free resources out there every day. And we deal with the practical. So sometimes people think, oh, she has a doctorate, she's all theoretical. No, very practical. I'm just glad I know the neuroscience. I'm glad I know what high-performing teams need. I'm glad I know what leadership needs to develop. And so I put resources out there every day to be able to focus your attention on the most important things so you can practically implement.
Fantastic. So somebody messaged on my phone. So my famous thing that I like to go all the time is I tell people, don't tell me what to do. Right. And so they were laughing and saying, so as soon as she got told she had to be locked down and sequestered at home, that's when she decided to go out to go work out.
Exactly. And by the way, that is part of it. People do.
Yeah.
So people in your leadership team, they have those issues. They have authority issues. They have a history of maybe they had dysfunctional. You can deal with all of that when you can have real information, when you can have real conversations and build it from the ground up. But yes, some of it was my authority issues, but some of it was, oh, I have the workout clothes on. Might as well go.
Right. No, I like that because you're creating an environment that's easy to make the decision. Right?
Yeah, and James Clear in Atomic Habits, James Clear said, just start with 2 minutes. Go park in the gym parking lot and go home. You just can't, what you're doing is creating new pathways and firing new wiring in the brain. It seems like there's no way it's going to work, but it actually works every time.
No, that's great. I can go do that because I don't have a gym membership, so I don't have to ever fear about actually going into the gym.
Walk. I do a lot of walking.
They won't let me in. I'll just park outside for a few minutes and surf Instagram and then take off. So. JR, anything you want to point out?
I just thought gosh, you said it all when you said it's like drinking from a fire hose. And then there was another fire hose after that comment.
Yes.
What a wonderful panoply of common sense, Dr. Olson. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the best year next year to everybody out there, starting with the 2 people in front of me.
Fantastic. Yes. And I really related back to crisis management when you said that, we get back from whatever it is. It's always the seminar you go to about 72 hours afterwards. You're right back where you were before because life hit you and didn't realize you had gone to a seminar to learn something new. Right. And you said, get back into crisis management. Your brain goes, great. This is familiar. let me go back through that. So again,
And what I
everybody
wish
listening
everybody
has
would
to
know,
acknowledge it.
what I wish
Yeah.
everybody would know is it's possible. Even if you've been a leader for decades and you haven't up to now, I promise you, it's possible, it's doable, it's accessible to you.
Fantastic. So thank you so much, Miss Margie Oleson. Everybody, I'd go over to Olsen Consulting, follow her on LinkedIn. Everything's in the show notes so that you can see it. That's there so you can communicate with her LinkedIn profile, and a link back to this one. And I want everybody to go out and sell something. Thanks, everybody. Have a good holiday.